Hello, my name is Emily McQuade, and for my featured digital library, I'm going to be looking at the Emily Dickinson Archive. This archive does use a acronym, and that goes by EDA. The mission is Emily Dickinson Archive makes high-resolution images of Dickinson's surviving manuscripts available in open access and provides readers with a website through which they can view images of manuscripts held in multiple libraries and archives. They further clarify their purpose here by basically stating that they are not a new edition, but rather an archive for resources central to the study of Dickinson's work. It should be viewed as a resource from which scholarship can be produced rather than a work of scholarship itself. The users are going to be researchers, scholars, and the general public who are interested in Dickinson's work. And then the stakeholders are going to be about 17 partners and contributors. Very prestigious institutions are associated here, and they actually own the manuscripts, and they provide them digitized to the archive. It is a collaborative model, but the Houghton Library at Harvard plays an integral role in establishing and maintaining the digital archive. Funding information was provided, and I believe they are reasonable, sustainable, because they have substantial support from prestigious institutions, both public and private. However, long-term viability and growth is undetermined because there's no mention of other grants or other funding sources. The content is primarily high-resolution images and manuscripts of Dickinson's poetry. That's going to be poems, letter poems, and poems in letters, facsicles, scraps, all these things included in manuscripts. And the transcriptions and annotations from selected historical and scholarly editions are also included. Right now, the collection is based on works found in this edition. However, in the future, they're looking to include all sorts of images from Dickinson, such as her letters. They also want to include modern and historical editions of her poems and letters. They want to do additional metadata, and they also want to add tools for manipulating the content. Let's take a tour. Here we are at the Emily Dickinson Archive. This is the home page. It details out their mission as well as some relevant information on Dickinson, her work, and the archive itself. We're going to take a look at the About page first. The overview goes over contents, long-term plans, and then of particular interest to us is their very robust methodology page, which goes over metadata, encoding, and platform. Their how to use page is also very good, basically making it so that any person with a basic tech skill set will be able to use this archive effectively. They also have frequently asked questions, lots of resources for researchers. They could come here as a hub for beginning that study. Partners and credits, these are the owning institutions of the manuscripts who are responsible for digitizing. They also go over their advisory boards and their funding. I know in this class, digital libraries were very interested in copyright in terms of use. EDA does a great job going over this. They are governed by Creative Commons. They explain what that is. They talk about commercial use and, of course, their Harvard legalese. They also address privacy. They do use Google Analytics, so some information is stored. They also call out the Patriot Act and their obligations there. Finally, they have a little bit of information about Contact Us, but basically they want you to reach out to the owning institution for any real questions. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the manuscripts. You have the option to either search by image or by work. We're going to take a look at by image. And this is organized by the collection. So these are the owning institutions. And I think we'll use the Houghton Library because that is one of the largest collections. So here All of the relevant information is listed out, so users would be able to select which manuscript they want to look at. We'll look at this one. And I like this one because it shows why a archive like this would be so important. For example, Emily attached a flower to this particular manuscript, and that's interesting and could be relevant for study. There are two views. This is the reading view, and you can kind of page forward and back in a natural way. But the manuscript view is going to be the one that has the most tools and is the most helpful for a research perspective. You can zoom in and see her handwriting, her punctuation. As you can see, it's really, really good quality. You can also go back to your original sizing. You can make it full screen. You can still toggle through the pages if needed. At the bottom, we have the credits for the manuscript, publication history, the licensing. You also can see more image metadata if that was important to a researcher. You can also download the image. They include a notes section. This would be really helpful to a scholar or a researcher that wanted to make annotations for this particular manuscript or is in the process of creating their own edition. On the right, you'll see text. So they have transcriptions, and you can select which edition you are interested in seeing the transcription from. And there actually are some pretty striking variations here. So that can be really fascinating in certain poems. You can also add this image to a reading list. Again, if you were studying a particular set of poems, this would be really helpful so you could reference them right away versus having to keep searching through the collections. They also detail out information about the work, the date, recipients. You can pull up the full metadata here. And this is really helpful so you can see, how many copies there are, an approximate date. Sometimes they'll include, if this was published in, a newspaper, if a copy was lost, just tons of information. You can also look at related works. So this poem starts with this line. It has another poem that starts the same way. And you can see it's different. It's completely different. And so you could compare those two different images to see, maybe what she was getting at, her variant language. The aesthetic is kind of simple, but I think it's beautiful in a way, and they have a lot of really great attention to detail. For example, one of the things I found was if you find a manuscript that doesn't have an image yet, for whatever reason, they haven't posted the poem yet, they use this as a placeholder, and this is actually pulled from Emily Dickinson's Herbarium, which is a bound album that she created in her youth, pulling many, many flowers from her area, and she bound them, and she had all of the scientific information, and I think it's a really nice touch. All right, to finish up, I'm going to go over a little bit of the technology. EDA is very thorough, and they present a lot of specific information regarding their technology, from the databases and coding information, their markup, their privacy information, what they use Google Analytics, how that's stored, and then they also go over their licensing. They are very transparent. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for listening.